very special book. We will be reading The Count of Monte Cristo, written by Alexandre Dumas in 1846. Remember, we've got to be quiet. We're in a library. The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Table of contents. The Count of Monte Cristo. The arrival at Marseille. On the 24th of February, 1815, the Marseille port lookouts signaled that three-master Pharaoh was coming up the harbor. She belonged to Morel and Son and was homeward bound from Smyrna, Trieste, and Naples. The pilot boat ran out to meet her, and the idlers congregated on the waterside to see her come into her mooring place with the more interests as she had been built, launched, and fitted out from this ancient port. She came in so slowly that it was easy to guess that she had met some mishap, not to herself, as she was in trim condition, but to someone aboard. The pilot was seen standing to transmit his orders, a bright-eyed and active young man. The vague disquiet of the spectators was peculiarly sharper in one of them who took a boat and man and was rowed out to meet the vessel. On seeing him draw near, the ship's officer left the pilot and, with his hat off, went to lean over the taffrail. He was a handsome fellow, not over 20, tall but slim, with beautiful black eyes and ebony hair, with all the calmness and resolution of those inured from the childhood to wrestle with dangers. "Ah, that is this you, Dante?" hailed the passenger in the wherry. "What is wrong, and why do you all wear such a sad look?" "A great misfortune befell us, Monsieur Morel," replied the young man, "and worse for me, off Civita Vecchia we lost our honest Captain Leclerc." "But the cargo?" quickly asked the ship owner. "That is safe in port, and I believe you will be satisfied on that score. But poor Captain Leclerc is dead, not fallen overboard, but carried off by brain fever." He turned aside and set his crew to work for letting go the anchor and taking in the sail. "How did all this happen?" asked the shipmaster, resuming, when the young commander returned to him. "Most unexpectedly, after a long talk with the harbor master at Naples, our skipper came aboard in a fret, and the fever breaking out in a day, he was done for in 3. We gave him the seaman's funeral, and I bring to his widow his sword and cross of the Legion of Honor. It was much good his waging war at sea for 10 years against the British, to die in his bed like the stay-at-homes at last," sighed the young man. "Never mind, Edmond, we are all mortal," returned the ship owner, seeming to be more and more consoled, "and the old must give place to the young, or there would be no promotion. And as long as you encourage me about the cargo, I answer for its being in good state, Monsieur Morel. I would not advise you to sell it without 25,000 profit." He turned to issue orders carried out as on a warship. The ship went on so slowly now that the shipmaster could step aboard. "Here's your supercargo coming on deck to supply you with full information." Supercargo Danglars was a man of 25, of a moody cast of countenance, obsequious to his superiors, and he was insolent to his inferiors. Besides his being the pursuer, which is always an object of aversion to the seaman, he was as badly viewed by the crew as Dantès was liked. "Well, Monsieur Morrel," said Danglars, "you have heard of the misfortune?" Yes, poor Captain Leclerc. He was a brave and honest man, and a first-rate seaman, grown old between the sky and sea, as should a man charged with interests of a house so important as Morrel and Son, replied Danglars. But, replied the owner, following it with his look Dantès, who was watching the anchoring, it seemed to me that a sailor needs not to be so old as you say, Danglars, to understand his business, for our friend Edmond seems to understand it thoroughly, and not to require instruction from anyone. Yes, said Danglars, casting towards Edmond a look in which envy was strongly visible. Yes, he is young, and youth is invariably self-confident. Scarcely was the captain's breath out of his body than he assumed the command without consulting anyone, and he caused us to lose a day and a half at the Isle of Elba, instead of making for Marseille direct. As to taking command of the vessel, replied Morrel, that was his duty as mate. As to losing a day and a half off the Isle of Elba, he was wrong unless the ship wanted repairs. The ship was as sound as I am, and as I hope you are, Monsieur Morrel, and this time was lost from pure whim for the pleasure of going ashore and nothing else. Dantès, the ship-owner, turning toward the young man, come this way. In a moment, sir, answered Dantès. Then, calling to the crew, he said, let's go. The anchor was instantly dropped, and the chain ran rattling through the porthole. Dantès continued at his post in spite of the presence of the pilot, till his maneuver was completed, and then he added, half-mast the flags and stay the yards ashore. You see, said Danglars, he fancies himself captain already, upon my word. And so, in fact, he is, said the owner. Accept your signature and your partner's, Monsieur Morrel. And why should he not have this? Asked the owner. He is young, it is true, but he seems to me a thorough seaman, and of full experience. A cloud passed over Danglars' brow. Your pardon, Monsieur Morrel. As Dantès approaching, the ship now rides at anchor, and I am at your service. You hailed me, I think? Danglars retreated a step or two. I wish to inquire why you stopped at the Isle of Elba. Do not know, sir. It was to fulfill the last instruction of Captain Leclerc, who, when dying, gave me a packet for Marshal Bertrand. Morrel looked around him, and then, drawing Dantès on one side, he said suddenly, and how is the Emperor? Very well, as far as I could judge from my eyes. He entered the apartment while I was there. And you spoke to him? He asked me questions about the ship, the time it left Marseille, and the course she had taken, and what was her cargo, I believe. If she had not been laden, and I had not been her master, he would have bought her. But I told him I was only mate, and that she belonged to Morrel and Son. Aha, he said, I know them. The Morrels have been ship-owners for generations, though one was a soldier who served in the same garrison with me at Valence. By Jove, that is true, exclaimed Morrel, delighted. He means my uncle Policar, who became a captain. Dantès, tell him that the Emperor remembered him, and you will see the old veteran look moist about the eyes. Come, added he, slapping the young officer on the shoulder, you were quite right to follow Leclerc's instructions and stop at Elba, though you might be bothered if known you handed a packet to the marshal and chatted with the exile. How could it entangle me? Said Dantès. I don't know what I carried, and the Emperor only spoke to me as to any next man. But here come the medical officers and the customs. Attend to them, said Morrel, whom Danglars approached, asking him if he were satisfied with the explanations. But, said he, how about the letter of Leclerc's, which he left at Port Farajo? I was just passing the cabin door when I saw that given, but unless he gave it to you, I may be mistaken. Say nothing to him.
Dantès returned, having settled everything, and the shipowner asked him to dinner. "Excuse me," said Edmond, "but I always pay my first visit to my father." "Right, Dantès, quite right. I always knew you were a good son." "And," inquired Dantès with some hesitation, "do you know how my father is?" "Well, I believe, my dear Edmond, though I have not seen him lately." "Yes, he likes to keep himself shut up in his little room. That proves at least that he has wanted for nothing during your absence." Dantès smiled. "My father is proud, sir, and if he had not a meal left, I doubt he would have asked anything from anyone except God." "Well then, after this first visit has been made, we rely on you." "I must again excuse myself, Monsieur Morrel, for after this first visit has been paid, I have another, which I am most anxious to pay." "True, Dantès, I forgot that there was at the Catalans someone who expects you no less impatiently than your father, the lovely Mercédès." Dantès blushed. "Ah, said the shipowner, "that does not astonish me, for she has been to me 3 times inquiring if there was any news. Edmond, you have a very handsome flame." "She is not my flame," replied the young sailor gravely. "She is my betrothed." "Well, well, my dear Edmond," continued the owner, "do not let me detain you. You have managed my affairs so well that I ought to allow you all the time you require for your own. Do you want any money?" "No, sir, I have all my pay to take, nearly 3 months' wages." "You are a careful fellow, Edmond." "Say I have a poor father, sir." Yes, I know how good a son you are, so now haste away to see your father. I have a son too, and I should be very wroth with those who detained him from me after 3 months' voyage." "Then I have your leave, sir?" "Yes, if you have nothing more to say to me." "Nothing. Captain Leclerc did not, before he died, give you a letter from me." "He was unable to write, sir, but that reminds me that I must ask your leave of absence for some days." "To get married?" "Yes, first, and then to go to Paris." "Very good. Have what time you require, Dantès. It will take quite 6 weeks to unload the cargo, and we cannot get you ready for sea until 3 months after that. Only be back again in 3 months for the Pharaoh," added the partner, patting the sailor on the back. "Cannot sail without her captain." "Without her captain?" cried Dantès, his eyes sparkling with animation. "Pray mind what you say, for you are touching on that." "Most secret wishes of my heart. Is it really your intention to nominate me captain?" "If I were sole owner, I would appoint you this moment, my dear Dantès, and say it is settled. But I have a partner, and you know the Italian proverb, 'He who has a partner has a master.' But the thing is at least half done, as you have 1 out of 2 voices. Rely on me to procure you the other. I will do my best." "Ah, Monsieur Morrel," exclaimed the seaman with tears in his eyes, and grasping the owner's hands, "I thank you in the name of my father and Mercédès." "Stay, Dantès, if you command, would you keep Danglars aboard?" "I always respect my owner's choice." "I see you are a good-hearted fellow, but I will not detain you. Good fortune." The speaker watched the youth proceed to shore in a rowboat, and Danglars did the same, but with hatred. That is the end of Chapter 1, friends. Join us next time for the Count of Monte Cristo, Chapter 2. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss any updates.